Stop justifying your weakness. Stop chasing approval. Stop pretending fairness exists. You either learn to think like a strategist or remain the experiment of those who already do. Why do you keep defending your point to people who already decided you're beneath them? Why do you expect loyalty from those who only move for power? Why do you still believe truth wins when manipulation writes the script? You've been trained to play fair in a game designed to make you lose. You're about to discover the dangerous truth. Control begins in the mind, not the throne. The weak react, the aware calculate, the superior predict. That's cognitive supremacy. Machiavelli witnessed it all. Rulers collapsing not from defeat, but from self-delusion. He saw that every downfall begins with the failure to think ahead. In the next few minutes, you'll learn why perception outranks emotion, how to bend the frame without breaking integrity, and when to command power without ever raising your voice. I'm not saying be evil, but even saints need strategy. Comment this affirmation below. I choose cognitive supremacy. Now, let's begin. Discover the 9 Machiavellian laws that separate the thinkers from the controlled. Law 1. Master the inner court. Rule your thoughts before they rule you. The first throne you must seize is not in the world, but in your mind. Before any conquest, before any influence, you must overthrow the invisible tyrant within the voice that doubts, delays, and dilutes every instinct of power you have. Most people obey that voice. They confuse overthinking for intelligence. But overthinking is the prison of the weak. It kills every act before it's born. You can't outsmart the world while losing to your own hesitation. Cognitive supremacy begins when you treat every thought like a soldier under command, not a ruler giving orders. When emotion storms your judgment, you pause, assess, and redirect. That pause is not hesitation. It's dominance. Machiavelli saw kings fall, not because their enemies were strong, but because their minds were divided. He who cannot rule himself, he wrote, is already ruled. The mind is your private court, advisors of logic, emotion, memory, fear, all whispering. The Machiavellian thinker listens but obeys none blindly. He decides which voice serves the strategy. He rules the counsel. Tactic. When your mind spirals in confusion, say this internally: this thought serves me, or it doesn't. If it weakens clarity, discard it instantly. This is mental pruning, the ritual of cognitive power. You are not your thoughts, you are the judge of them. Rule the court, and the empire will follow. Law 2. Control perception. Command belief. Power doesn't start with truth. It starts with interpretation. The masses don't respond to logic. They respond to the way you make them feel about your certainty. That's the second step to cognitive supremacy, mastering the invisible theater of perception. The naive believe honesty is enough. It isn't. The world doesn't reward transparency. It rewards strategy. You can be right and still lose if you fail to manage how others see you. Machiavelli understood this. He saw rulers destroyed, not because they were wrong, but because they looked weak while being right. Humans judge faster than they think. They read tone before words, confidence before competence. When you walk into any room, your energy arrives before your voice does. While others seek validation, you must engineer perception. When they rush to explain, you remain deliberate. The less you reveal, the more people imagine. And imagination, once triggered, always exaggerates your power. This is not manipulation, it's mental architecture. Control how others frame you, and you build psychological gravity around your presence. Machiavelli saw this as the essence of leadership. Men obey more readily those who appear certain. Appearance, then, isn't deception, it's discipline. Positive mindset tactic. Before any interaction, anchor your mind with this inner command: I decide how I'll be perceived. Don't wait for confidence to appear. Project it deliberately. Hold your posture, steady your breathing, and visualize yourself as the calmest person in the room. The mind follows the body's leadership. That's not arrogance, it's trained composure. Confidence isn't a feeling, it's a decision. Control, perception, and belief will follow both theirs and yours. Nor 3. Master emotional detachment. Control the storm. Command the strategy. When you react, you serve. When you observe, you rule. Most people lose the war before it begins, not because they lack intelligence, but because they surrender their mind to emotion. They mistake feeling for thinking and passion for precision. Machiavelli warned that the prince who cannot conceal his heart is already conquered. You've been taught that detachment makes you cold. But here's the dark truth. Detachment doesn't kill emotion, it disciplines it. Emotional detachment is the hidden switch that transforms chaos into calculation. It's not suppression, it's elevation. You rise above the storm while others drown in it. Picture this. Someone insults you in public. A fool reacts. A strategist pauses. That one breath, that silence becomes control. In that instant, your opponent's intent is exposed, while your mind remains untouched. They show you their emotional map. You reveal nothing. That's not weakness, that's warfare disguised as peace. Machiavelli observed men crumble under insult because they sought validation more than victory. He watched rulers lose empires not to armies, but to outrage. He witnessed emotion destroy strategy faster than swords ever could, and so he mastered stillness, the power of unreadable calm. Cognitive supremacy begins here, in the refusal to let emotion choose for you. Every reaction is a currency, and the wise spend it only with purpose. Train yourself to delay response by 3 seconds when provoked. In those 3 seconds, you are not freezing, you are forging clarity. Your opponent moves from certainty to confusion. Your silence becomes their mirror. Practical tactic. Next time you feel disrespected, don't respond. Instead, analyze, what do they want me to feel right now? Then choose the opposite. This single reversal builds unshakable power. While others argue to prove strength, you will pause to preserve control. That's the art of invisible dominance. Calm mind, precise strike, no wasted motion. Detach not to escape emotion, but to command it. Because the one who rules emotion rules perception, and perception, in every battlefield of life, is reality. Positive mindset tactic. Detach not from people, but from outcomes. You still care, but you don't cling. This creates internal peace, the kind that no manipulation can touch. You act from purpose, not reaction. That is how you step from chaos into supremacy. Affirmation command. Drop this in the comments. My silence is strategy, not surrender. Law 4. Control the narrative before it controls you. The moment you stop defining the story, someone else begins writing it for you. That's how most people lose, not in battle, but in perception. Machiavelli knew this better than anyone. He watched kings rise through lies they authored and fall through truths they couldn't control. He wrote, "The one who shapes appearances shapes fate." Here's the brutal truth. Reality doesn't matter, perception does. Cognitive supremacy begins with narrative supremacy. Every interaction, every argument, every reputation is a silent struggle for authorship. Whoever names the event owns the outcome. When people talk about you, they don't repeat facts, they repeat frames. You can't stop gossip, but you can plant context. You can't control mouths, but you can control meanings. The weak defend themselves with words. The strong define the battlefield with language. Imagine 2 men accused of the same act. One rushes to justify, the other smirks and says, "If I were guilty, would I look this calm?" One explains, the other frames. Guess which one the world believes? Narrative control isn't deception, it's direction. It's the art of guiding how others interpret your moves without ever begging for understanding. When you master this, Even your silence speaks power. Every pause, every tone, every gesture becomes narrative design. Machiavelli saw this as the invisible crown. He knew the masses crave stories, not truths, and the wise feed them meaning while keeping reality private. Because when you own the story, you can bend reality itself. Practical tactic. Before entering any conversation, ask yourself, what story am I about to create? Decide your frame first, then speak. Never explain impulsively. Instead, redefine calmly. For example, when accused or challenged, say, "Interesting how you see it that way." Then pivot. You've just reclaimed authorship without attention. Single defense. Positive mindset tactic. Remember, controlling the narrative isn't manipulation when your intent is growth. It's alignment. It's protecting your peace and purpose from distortion. You're not lying, you're leading meaning. The more clarity you bring to your story, the less confusion can weaponize you. Every day, rewrite your internal script. I define, I direct, I decide. That's how cognitive supremacy transforms into narrative sovereignty. Affirmation command. Drop this in the comments. I don't explain, I define. Law 5. The law of strategic absence. Build respect through distance. Closeness breeds comfort. Comfort breeds invisibility. And the invisible are never respected. Machiavelli understood this law like a weapon. He watched rulers destroy their mystique by being too available, too eager to be seen, too desperate to please. In his eyes, overexposure was suicide. When people think they can access you anytime, they start believing they own you. Cognitive supremacy demands strategic distance, not isolation, but selective presence. Your silence becomes intrigue. Your absence becomes echo. When you withdraw intentionally, people start to wonder, not forget. Curiosity is the softest form of power, and you can only create it through restraint. Every king knows scarcity creates value. Every manipulator knows attention creates addiction. And every wise mind knows balance between the two creates control. Think about it. When was the last time you missed someone who was always available? Exactly. Even your energy must have seasons, summer for exposure, winter for withdrawal. Because absence, used wisely, isn't loss, it's leverage. Machiavelli observed how men of influence mastered timing, appearing when their presence could shift the room, then vanishing before over-familiarity dulled their edge. They weren't ghosts, they were tacticians of attention, and so must you be. Practical tactic. Set an availability boundary. Do not answer every call, every message, every question immediately. Train others to wait. You teach them your value by forcing patience. Example phrase: I'll get back to you when I have clarity. Simple, calm, controlled. It signals authority without aggression. Positive mindset tactic. Use absence not as punishment but as recalibration. When you step back, you recharge your mind, sharpen your intuition, and realign with purpose. You're not hiding, you're healing into strength. Presence without boundaries drains. Absence with intention builds power. When you control access to your energy, you teach the world how to treat it. The weak fear being forgotten. The powerful know. To be missed is to be remembered. That is psychological gravity. Respect pulled by distance. Affirmation command. Drop this in the comments. My absence creates value. My silence commands attention. Law 6, the law of perception control. Appear weaker, think deeper. The greatest strategist never looks like one. The most intelligent mind never needs to prove it. Because the moment people realize your depth, they start guarding theirs. Cognitive supremacy isn't about showing you're superior. It's about guiding perception until others reveal themselves completely. Machiavelli saw this clearly. He watched how rulers won not by brute intellect, but by concealed awareness. He wrote, Everyone sees what you appear to be. Few experience what you truly are. That's not deceit. That's discipline. You must learn the art of strategic camouflage. Let others think they're ahead while you observe, calculate, and prepare the move they'll never see coming. The predator that roars first rarely survives the hunt. The one that stays still controls it. In the realm of cognitive dominance, appearing harmless is your sharpest weapon. People lower their guard around what they underestimate. Their ego becomes your surveillance system. Their assumptions become your data. While others rush to be impressive, you stay unreadable. While they chase validation, you harvest insight. While they fight for attention, you prepare for advantage. This law isn't about playing small, it's about choosing when to appear small. You dictate the stage by controlling your image. Even silence can be a costume, and simplicity, a shield. The less predictable your reactions, the more others project their thoughts onto you, revealing their own patterns without realizing it. Illustrative example. Imagine a negotiation where the opponent flaunts confidence. You nod, you listen, you pause. That pause isn't weakness, it's analysis. You're collecting ammunition in real time. By the time they finish talking, they've unknowingly mapped their fears and limits to you. That's not luck. That's Machiavellian patience. Practical tactic. In any argument, let the other person explain themselves first fully. When they stop, wait 3 seconds before responding. That silence unsettles them. It makes them fill the gap again. Every extra word they speak exposes another truth. Positive mindset tactic. Train yourself to take no offense when underestimated. Let it fuel your composure. Every time someone underestimates you, they hand you invisible freedom. The freedom to observe without pressure, to strike without warning. Your strength grows in silence, not in noise. Because in the end, it's not about being right, it's about being effective. Not about shining, but about steering. Let others crave applause. You crave insight. Because the wolf in wool always eats first. Mid-script, CTA. Wait until Law 7. It reverses everything you think you know about influence. Most people chase attention. The wise redirect it. Affirmation command. Comment this right now. I master perception. I appear calm. I think deeper. Law 7. The law of frame dominance. Control the lens. Control the world. Reality is not what's true. It's what people believe is true. And whoever controls that belief controls everything. You can be intelligent, skilled, even right. But if you fail to command the frame, you'll always live inside someone else's story. Machiavelli knew this all too well. He watched kings lose empires, not because they lacked power, but because they failed to define perception. The strongest mind doesn't react to the world, it rewrites the meaning of it. Here's the dark truth. Every conversation is a battle of frames. Yours versus theirs. The stronger frame always absorbs the weaker. That's why you must never argue from within someone else's logic. Redefine it. Don't fight for agreement. Fight for definition. Someone insults you? Don't defend, redefine. Someone questions your worth? Don't explain, redirect. Someone tries to dominate? Reframe the tone. Because defending a point is submission, defining it is supremacy. Machiavelli saw this game unfold in every court. He watched how the clever survived by setting the context, not chasing validation. While others reacted emotionally, the strategist turned every accusation into opportunity, every insult into leverage. Illustrative example. When someone says, "You've changed," the weak defend. "No, I'm still the same." The strong redefine. "Of course I changed, growth demands it." That one shift flips the power dynamic instantly. You moved from defense to authorship. Practical tactic. Before responding to anyone, ask, whose frame am I standing in right now, mine or theirs? If it's theirs, pause, breathe, then shift it with one sentence that reclaims the narrative. Example: let's look at it differently. Those 5 words move you from participant to controller. Positive mindset tactic. Frame control isn't about manipulation. It's about mental discipline. You train your mind to assign meaning to events instead of absorbing them. When rejection happens, you frame it as redirection. When delay happens, you frame it as strategy. Every situation becomes a tool instead of a threat. This is how emotional mastery and cognitive supremacy merge into one force. Because when you control the lens, you don't need to fight for respect. Reality itself begins to echo your tone. While others defend their feelings, you define the field. While others react, you rewrite. And while they seek fairness, you seek leverage. Affirmation command: drop this in the comments. I control the frame. My perception shapes power. Law 8. The law of emotional austerity. Power through detachment. Power is never lost in chaos. It's lost in emotion. Because when emotion owns you, logic deserts you. And when logic deserts you, someone else drives your mind like a stolen vehicle. Machiavelli saw this weakness everywhere: rulers destroyed by rage, lovers ruined by pride, soldiers blinded by vengeance. He watched how even the smartest collapsed the moment their emotions became public property. His cold conclusion: he who controls emotion commands perception. He who displays emotion becomes entertainment. Emotional austerity doesn't mean you feel nothing. It means you govern what you feel. You become the sovereign of your own inner kingdom, where impulse bows before intention. This is the psychological fortress of cognitive supremacy. The naive believe honesty of emotion makes them authentic, but the Machiavellian knows emotion without strategy makes you transparent, and transparency is death in the game of power. Pause and observe your last argument, your last fear, your last emotional spiral. Ask yourself, who benefited from that reaction? Because someone always does. Illustrative example: imagine you're insulted in front of others. The untrained mind reacts anger, defense, humiliation. The trained mind waits silence, sharpens like a blade. That pause disorients everyone. They expected reaction. You gave calculation. In that instant, you dominate the psychological terrain. Practical tactic: before you react emotionally, anchor yourself with a physical cue. Touch your wrist, take one controlled breath, or look away briefly. It resets the limbic loop. Then choose your response like a chess move, not a slap. What to say? Noted. One word: calm, disarming, terrifying. Because you've shown you can't be emotionally baited. Positive mindset tactic. Detachment doesn't disconnect you. It frees you. When you stop chasing emotional validation, your confidence becomes self-sustaining. You think clearer. You feel deeper. You decide faster. You replace chaos with clarity, and the world starts mirroring your internal calm. No matter how loud the chaos becomes, you remain the quiet center, observing, calculating, deciding. That stillness is not weakness. It's stored energy. The most dangerous man in the room is not the one who shouts, it's the one who feels deeply but shows nothing. While others drown in noise, you breathe in control. While they beg for validation, you build resilience. While they react, you reign. Affirmation. Command. Drop this in the comments. I feel deeply, but act strategically. Law 9. The law of strategic self-myth. Author your own legend. When the mind conquers emotion, one battlefield remains the battlefield of identity. Because in the end, the most powerful form of control isn't over others, it's over who you decide to become. Machiavelli understood that perception outlives truth. He saw rulers who died, yet their names ruled centuries later. Why? Because they engineered myth. They wrote the narrative before history could. He witnessed men who were forgotten not because they failed, but because they let others define their story. This is the final step of cognitive supremacy, transforming your life into deliberate fiction, a myth built from precision, not illusion. You craft who you are with intent. You become the author, not the character. The weak chase validation, the average defend reputation, but the Machiavellian builds legend. Your identity must serve your purpose like armor, protective, symbolic, untouchable. Every word you speak, every silence you choose, every posture you hold, all of it communicates one message: control. Even humility, used consciously, becomes design. Ask yourself, when people think of you, what emotion do they feel? Respect? Fear? Curiosity? That's your myth living inside their minds rent-free. Illustrative. Example. Alexander wasn't just a conqueror, he cultivated his own divinity. Elon Musk isn't just an innovator, he plays the character of one. Their image leads their influence. Their myth leads their moves. The world doesn't follow facts, it follows stories. So what story are you writing about yourself? Practical tactic. Curate your environment like a narrative set. Remove habits that contradict your myth. Choose language that reinforces it. When you enter a room, move with narrative awareness. Every gesture is dialogue. Every silence is punctuation. What to say when challenged? That's one version of me. Then, walk away. You've reminded them you control authorship. Positive mindset tactic. This isn't deception, it's self-direction. When you author your myth, you give meaning to struggle. You turn setbacks into chapters, pain into prophecy, growth into symbolism. That's how discipline becomes destiny. You're not pretending, you're designing. You live with psychological precision. The legend you build in silence today becomes the power others will speak about tomorrow. Because cognitive supremacy isn't just about being smarter, it's about becoming unforgettable. While others fade with trends, you rise as a constant. While they chase applause, you carve authority. And while they exist, you endure. Affirmation command. Drop this in the comments. I write my own legend. Power begins with self-authorship. The final transformation, the ascension of the untouchable mind. So, let's bring it full circle. You've now crossed 9 thresholds, each one peeling back a layer of illusion. What began as curiosity has turned into self-command. You no longer react, you redirect. You no longer chase understanding, you engineer it. Let's recall what you've armed yourself with. You learned the law of mental control, that your mind is the battlefield, not the victim. You mastered emotional restraint, using stillness as strength. You built strategic boundaries, teaching the world how to value your presence through absence. You wielded perception, control, the art of appearing weaker while thinking deeper. You claimed frame dominance, bending reality through definition, not defense. You enforced emotional austerity, choosing clarity over chaos. And finally, you authored your strategic self-myth, transforming your identity into narrative power. Each of these steps isn't theory, it's transformation. Together, they forge what I call cognitive supremacy. The ability to rule your perception, control your emotions, and command the social field silently. But let's make this clear. This is not about ego. It's about discipline. You don't rise above others, you rise above reaction. You don't seek control, you embody calm. And that calm terrifies those who still depend on chaos. In the end, Machiavelli didn't write for kings. He wrote for the unseen rulers of the future. Those who dominate quietly, influence invisibly, and move strategically. That's you if you choose it. Future identity, visualization. Imagine yourself walking into a room, no words, no effort, yet everyone adjusts their energy around yours. That's not arrogance, that's alignment, because the mind that governs itself bends reality without resistance. You've become the quiet storm, silent, centered, unstoppable. Binary choice. Stay reactive or evolve into command. Stay emotional or ascend into clarity. Stay average or become untouchable. Final CTA. The initiation of power. If you've made it here, prove it. Like this, if you refuse to be mentally manipulated again. Comment your final affirmation. I think like Machiavelli. I command my mind. Share this video to awaken someone still lost in emotional slavery. Subscribe because this isn't entertainment, it's your initiation into strategic awakening. And remember this, the weak react, the strong respond. But the masters, they design the response before the world even speaks. You've just entered that realm. Welcome to cognitive supremacy.